Rhythm Africa, television for the whole family.
This is Coronavirus and You from LITOVIA TV. I'm Frederick Chitanya. Thank you so much for having us. Apologies for starting the program a bit late, but you know how it is with coronavirus. We blame everything on it. Today, we are discussing how coronavirus, COVID-19, is affecting children. Okay, but before we get into the topic, a bit of update on what is happening globally as well as in the country regarding the statistics of confirmed cases of coronavirus. As we stand right now, looking at the live updates on a global scale, we have 24,652,000 cases. 24,652,000 cases, of which we have 836,000 who have died. And out of that 24.6 million, 17.1 million have recovered, leaving us with 6.7 active cases globally. You want also to know what is happening as far as Africa is concerned in terms of where we are compared to the rest of the world. Second to the US, which is of course way ahead of everyone. US having 6 million cases, followed by Brazil 3.7 million, India 3.3, almost 3.4 million, Russia 980,000. And remember last week, in fact, a few days ago, South Africa was number 5 in the world, but it has been overtaken by Peru, which now stands at 621,000, almost 622,000. South Africa, number 6, 618,000. The way Colombia and Mexico are coming, they will overtake South Africa in the next few days. So we expect South Africa to take the 8th or the 7th position as far as the global cases are concerned. Back home, as of yesterday, according to the update that was done by the Ministry of Health, by the way, by the end of our program today, the Ministry of Health will have updated the nation on what is happening in the nation regarding the cases of coronavirus. But as of yesterday, we had 225 new confirmed cases. No death was reported. We had 147 recoveries, which is good. Remember what I always say, that if we want to be seeing more recoveries than new cases, you and me should do something about it. Practice social distancing, wear masks, and avoid getting into crowded places. If you do, please wear a mask, and always practice that hand hygiene that we need. So as we stand, we have 11,601 confirmed cases in Zambia. Recoveries, amazingly, and we thank God for this, we have 10,840. Unfortunately, we have lost 282 people to coronavirus, 91 of which are directly related to COVID-19, and 191 are associated to COVID-19. As we speak, 479 cases active. When I say active, doesn't mean everyone is in hospital. No. In fact, only less than 100 people are admitted in hospital as we talk. Okay? The rest are either isolated at home or in some facility of their choice somewhere. They are stable. They are being monitoring themselves because there's nothing wrong with them. It's just that the test said negative or positive the last time they tested. So that is the situation as we stand according to the update that was done yesterday by the Ministry of Health. We hope to see more recoveries today so that, it can give us hope, because the more numbers of cases you have, of course, the higher the reproductive rate of the cumulative or the total number of those active cases. As I said, today we are discussing the impact of coronavirus on the children, the impact of COVID-19 even on the children. As we stand today, 99% of the world's children are living under some form of pandemic-related limit on movement. 60% live in countries under full or partial lockdowns, and 1.6 billion children are out of school. The coronavirus pandemic and the unprecedented measures to contain its spread are disrupting nearly every aspect of children's lives. Their health, development, learning, behavior, their families' economic security, and their protection from violence and abuse. Just how will this affect children's mental health? To help me answer this question and many more questions, I have an educational and child psychologist, Mr. Kelly MULENGA. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
I must say, it's not the first time he's appearing on this program. He has appeared via phone a few times, but today we are privileged to have him in person in our studio live in front of the camera. Okay, please note that there's a phone number on your screen. Call that number anytime as we begin the discussion. We want to know in your area how coronavirus is affecting children. And also, if you're a teacher, most importantly, I want to know exactly what is happening to your school, and what is happening to the children that you teach. From the education psychology point of view, how do you think this will impact on your children in the long term? Mr. MULENGA, this is a very important topic we are discussing today. And I must admit that I wish we started talking about this from the beginning, because it's one of the most neglected topics, just because, according to the research that just came out today, in fact, yesterday was reported today, the biggest research on children affected by or infected with coronavirus. 650 children were assessed in the UK. And they discovered that there are very few chances of a child dying from COVID-19. But children that are obese, children that are coming from impoverished homes, especially black households, and children under 1 are more at risk of, or have got higher chances of being in the ICU, meaning they are more at risk of dying. That alone is enough trigger to send fears to the children. Now listen to this before I ask you you can make a comment generally on the topic. Listen to this. The ongoing crisis could increase the number of children living in monetary poor households by up to 117 million children by the end of this year, a few months from now. This is according to it's not just speculation. This is according to the latest analysis by UNICEF and Save the Children. Where do you think this puts the third world child?
I think that's a very, very cardinal question you have put forward. What is important is to look at the population pyramid of our country and the third world country.
That's right.
We realize that in the population pyramid, most of the people are young people. They're young children who are under the age of 5, under the age of 13, under the age of 15. So they are likely to be affected by the pandemic.
Yeah.
So what we are saying about coronavirus and the pandemic itself is that we are focusing more on adults than children.
Yeah.
And we have actually, in many cases in the third world, we have neglected the children. When you talk about coronavirus, we are talking about adults. But yet we do know, as we have said before, coronavirus has got lifelong consequences for these children. Yeah. They are losing their loved ones. They are seeing people die.
Absolutely.
And if we took just a small survey around the community and we asked just one child, do you know anyone who has had coronavirus, or have you heard of someone who has had coronavirus? Surely the answer we'll get is yes. So coronavirus is out there, and the children in the third world know about it. But in the third world, what is really worrying and what we need to be concerned about are the socio-economic characteristics of our lives in the third world. We don't have access to food.
Yes.
And the shocks of the pandemic itself, which has upended everything. So children lack access to food, basic nutrition, basic health care. If you walked into a health institution, you find that maybe you may not find the best healthcare you can get. So all these things have been disrupted. So what we are seeing right now is that there is a total upheaval in the third world country because we have so many children who are affected by it, and we are not addressing that issue at all.
Let me see if this call belongs to us. You're through to coronavirus, and thank you for calling us. May we know your name and where you're calling us from? Okay, tizakurizani nyumba yanu ikasira program ya coronavirus. Mamvera? Ziko. Oh, sorry. Did I cut her earlier? I know she was calling for. Thank you for calling anyway. We will send the message over to Dr. B.I., the host of the program that was playing the song that you are interested in. So, sir, you can continue from where you ended.
Yes, exactly. So what we are seeing is these upheavals around the bringing up of children. In the third world countries, many families eat hand to mouth.
Yeah.
We are daily surviving. It's a struggle for survival every day. So when you see that families are struggling to get the basic food basket, they're struggling to get water, nutrition, basic sanitation. So children are affected in that way. But more importantly, what we are forgetting about this pandemic, and we need to emphasize that it's a lifelong consequence for these children. What we don't know right now, despite the research you have mentioned, is we don't know what will be the outcomes of this. This is a new virus, this is a new disease. We are still grappling to learn more about it, so we don't know the long-term consequences.
Do you know what is shocking? Nowadays, in fact, past few months, when you drive through town, of course you'll see these street kids begging, but the numbers have gone up of street kids, okay? Why? Because even the little that their relatives, their guardians were making, they're not making it, because you and me, that person and me, who probably may have a job here and there, are not getting paid as they used to do before coronavirus. Therefore, we don't have enough money to give to the needy. We don't have enough money to buy. Because when I buy, I'm also supporting the person who is selling for them to have an income. And this is a ripple effect. If in my job I can't get paid, I will not spend. And if I can't spend, it means somebody who was supposed to buy will not get their income.
It's just not an increase among the street kids. I think if you drive among the communities, our local communities, you drive in Chawama, you drive in John Lengi, you see all these youths, young children loitering about, who are not going to school, whose lives have changed, whose parents have lost income. So what we are seeing actually is a whole bunch of a generation, and this is what is worrying, a generation that is going to miss something very, very important in their growth. And this is something as a nation we have to take seriously, as a state board country we have to take seriously, because there is a chance that this generation will definitely miss something in terms of growth.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, I said earlier in the introduction, Mr. Mulenga, that 188 countries in the world have imposed countrywide school closures, including Zambia, if it wasn't just for examination classes, affecting more than 1.6 billion children and youth. Now, one can argue that we have virtual classes, but how many can afford to buy these bundles every day? How do you think this will affect the psychological and mental well-being of the child?
Firstly, there will be a learning crisis. Already the learning crisis has happened. We've lost an academic year for the non-examination classes. Yesterday I heard the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Kalumba, talking about this. So the learning crisis has been made worse by the pandemic. That's the starting point. Secondly, when you look at this, we can start from the top of the youths, then come down to the children. Let's look at the youths who already have got conditions, mental health conditions. The pandemic is making those conditions worse. Look around our communities. There are youths who are addicted to alcohol. There are youths who are found in, who are being taken to levy for alcohol addiction, for drug addiction. This pandemic is getting worse. So their mental health condition of those youths is already affected. But what we don't know for sure, because this is a new pandemic, we are not very sure the long-term effects on the ordinary child, on the ordinary. But already we are seeing it in homes. an increase in misbehavior, an increase in alcohol abuse, an increase in lack of control of children in their homes. Yes. On top of that, we look at the universities, because these are also children in the universities. You can think of someone who is supposed to write an exam, and your mental health, you're geared that you're going to write an exam next week, and you don't know if you're going to get coronavirus or not. So this is a stress on its own among our youths. A lot of students, if we had to ask them, they are already stressed about it, and this is something all colleges or institutions or learning institutions should look into, about how their students are feeling about this. Then secondly, we have children. I always come to, my heartfelt, the job I love to do is work with children with disabilities. I am thinking of a child with a disability, autism. This is a children who like routine, who follows routine all the time. This routine has been disrupted. So that's got an effect on their mental health. Schools on their own act as an anchor for behavior. Schools give structure. Schools give direction. For children who are in non-examination classes, these schools are not providing that direction. So there is likely to be a problem. You drive around in our communities, you see children playing from morning till evening. I think you and I sometimes back discussed the issue of those children who were running up and down there when they were building the flyover bridge. That was a real big issue, because these children have got nothing to do. Parents are waking up every day to run into town to try to make some money for their daily living. And therefore, children are neglected in the process. So the mental health, not only for normal children, but for children who already have got conditions, is affected. And as a result, we should be concerned about the long-term effects of these children. We do know that, from what we know about the mental health of children, that when their mental health status is affected, even their ability to go through school, to navigate the education system, can get affected. Some of them will drop out of the way. I am worried very much about children with disabilities who are more likely to drop out even before the pandemic came on. But now we are worried about every child. So we should be thinking a lot about the children in the colleges. Sometimes we underestimate, and I think it's in our culture, Dr. Chitangala, that we always talk as if children are not concerned about this virus. We always underestimate their feelings. It's time we started talking about this. It's time we addressed this to the children and say, okay, it's affecting their mental health status.
Yeah. I recently, my son, who was in grade 11, sat quietly, and my wife asked him, what is it? And then he says, so mommy, I will not finish grade 12 next year. Okay, sounds like a simple answer. Yes, you will not. But there was something going on in his mind. Just to think that I'll still be in secondary school beyond next year, instead of being in college, was something he couldn't contend. So now I had to explain to him, no, it's not like it's your fault or anybody's fault. There's this issue that is going on. Now, let's look at stress and the effect of isolation. You touched briefly on the structures that are provided by the schools, the environments, okay? But now, they are not just isolated from schools, they are also limited to move around as they used to, They are restricted to move, to go watch movies, because teenagers especially want to explore. They can't go to the mall, they can't go to jumping castles for the kids. All this, how is this affecting the development of children? But let me take this call before I get to that. You are through to coronavirus, and thank you for calling. May we know your name and where you are calling from?
Good morning. We're calling you from Mongo.
Sounds like Mr. Chitin Seluka. Thank you, our believer in this program.
Of course, sir. How are you? And how are you, Mr. MULENGA?
Fine, thank you. And how are you? How is Mongu?
Quite today, we are fine.
Ensha.
Please go ahead and tell us your contribution, Mr. Nseluka. Your question, would appreciate to hear what's going on in Mongu regarding how this coronavirus is affecting children.
Okay, thank you very much. So, by the nature of my work, we are community workers.
Yeah.
So we are quite in touch with the grassroots.
Mm-hmm.
One good message that you should be able to appreciate is that almost all the children, both those who go to school and those who don't,
Yes.
know why they are not going to school.
Mm-hmm.
You ask them a question, why haven't you gone to school?
Mm-hmm.
They will tell you corona. Kunani matuku ya corona.
Mm.
So you ask them, are you missing school? They'll say, yes, we want to go back to school. Yet at the same time, for the group 4, it's an opportunity to play a sport.
Group 4 or Group D?
Or Group D. So I would urge Mr. Mulenga
Yes.
that as we revert to the new normal where we shall go back to school, most of these children indeed are missing school.
Mm-hmm.
I have had a few interviews. We want to go to school, and also the parents who are not ready to keep children because they are used that children are most of the time at school.
Yes.
And so I hope that even the way the syllabus is going to be structured, because this is an opportunity to instruct a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
The syllabus should be to be restructured in such a way that the pupils who are felt the pinch absent from school should be part of the solution.
Yes.
We expect a change in the way examinations are reframed concerning health courses, science. They should not be the normal one-way data. They should be things that pupils will be able to appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
They should be able to know that if we do not maintain hygiene, coronavirus is going to take us back into the compound.
Yeah.
So the onus is on the teachers, on Ministry of Education, to take this as an opportunity to restructure in which the way health subjects are taught and make the pupils as part of the solution to enhance a better level of hygiene, education, and indeed a proper overhaul of what I call an archaic education system at all levels. The other impact that this thing has had, corona, on the children, as you said, Dr. Stangara, everything is connected. Everything is connected. Most of our parents are not used to feeding our children at lunch supper.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But these children are available. So with the current economic status, it's very hard to feed them.
Food is finishing fast, huh?
Exactly. So you can link this at any point you want.
Yeah.
So the take-home message is, as we break recess, as we revert to the new normal, may the structures of questions of how we teach be problem-solving, decision-making over the health. Because indeed, what turned out to be a health issue has broken down the whole entire planet.
Yeah.
That's the health issue.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, sir. That was my contribution.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your contributions and your keen interest in this program. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you, sir.
That's Mr. Nseluka. He speaks very fluently Lozi, but he's Bemba. And he works from Mongo. Do you want to make a quick comment on what he has just said?
Yes, a quick comment. Mr. Nseluka, I hope you are watching. Coronavirus has upended a lot of things. It has upended the way we work in the family, the way we work at home. So with that upending of things, it means that we are going to restructure our syllabuses. But what we need also to mention very critically is that the onus is not on the Ministry of Education alone. I think the onus is on everybody. Coronavirus, even if we teach in school to wash your hands, to mask up, as long as that message is not reinforced at home, is not shown at home, is not given to the kids at home, nothing is going to happen. So all of us have to be role models, starting from the top all the way down. And I like the way you put it, that you have talked to the children. You know, in our culture, we don't talk to children. So if you talk to children, that is really brilliant, and I admire you for that. So in our culture, we have to learn to talk about kids. And I can challenge many families out there that please talk to your children about coronavirus. Many times we just assume they know, oh, daddy, corona. But also what I would like you to do, Mr. Nseluka, is that I want you to delve a little bit deeper, find out more about how these children really feel other than just school. What are they scared of? What are their fears? What do they dream about? What are they really concerned about? You'll be surprised what they can tell you. There's so much knowledge that they can tell you, which we can put into the so-called educational programs. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to the question that I'd asked before we received that very important call. How do high levels of stress and isolation, not just from school, but from so many things that kids so love doing. When they're not at school, perhaps they want to go and watch a movie, they want to go for jumping castle, they want to go to fairs here and there, but they're not going there. How is this affecting that development?
Yeah. Stress is quite very important in our life. Actually, it's a life-saving mechanism the body uses to save our lives.
Yeah.
Whenever something happens which is out of normal, we have stress so that we reverse back to the normal. So stress is very, very common among all of us. Even here, you and me, we've got a little bit of a stress here so that everything seems as normal as possible.
Yeah, but my stress is I don't know my salary if it will come. So.
Now, isolation also, in its own sense, is a form of stress.
Yes.
And when these kids are exposed to isolation, as long as it's not extended over a long, long period of time, it's normal stress. And the body can react positively to it. Now, with lengthened levels of stress, months and months of isolation in the home, and I know, given the family variables, given family factors, there are some families who have really isolated their children right away from the world. Their children don't even go outside to play. There are families who don't even isolate, they let children play out anywhere. But so we have all these family dynamics that are out at play. But in the long term, isolation has got an effect on the mind.
Absolutely.
It has got an effect on the brain.
Absolutely.
And we do know that isolation, if children are too much isolated, it has got physiological effects. In adults, we see it as cardiovascular problems, heart problems, hypertension, overweight, which you mentioned in the study that was done. All these effects of isolation. Now, in the long term, because isolation is a form of a stressor, therefore it has got long-term implications on adult life in these children. Children who are heavily isolated, the way this generation is growing under isolation, I think we are likely to see long-term effects when they're adults. And these long-term effects, we don't know, but some of them could disrupt their lives.
Absolutely.
Some of them could be lack of failure to go through the educational system. Some of them could be lack of confidence when meeting other people in a group situation. Some of them could be an inability to talk to a public. So it has got long-term effects. But what we do know about isolation, it affects the brain, especially in young ones. If you look at our foreheads here, there is a part in the brain that is responsible for coordinating social skills. And that part is very important. And we do know that with isolation, that part fails to make the right connections.
Oh my goodness.
Stops functioning the way it should be. So as a result, a child who is very heavily isolated, and I'm using the word heavily isolated, might have all kinds of behavior, misbehavior, malfunctional behaviors, psychopathologies. We are likely to see that. So at the end of the day, the brain's cognitive skills weaken. They weaken. There is a deterioration in the thinking systems of isolation.
I wish somebody can do a cohort, follow-up study, and follow up these kids over a period of time, or for as long as there's coronavirus, and see what is happening. To be a very interesting study, don't you think so?
I think I like that kind of studies. I would like, for example, I like this kind of comparative studies where you can compare children who have been highly isolated and those who have been lowly isolated. And we see the social outcomes of these children. How are their coping mechanisms? The more isolated you are, the lesser you cope in adult life.
If you are watching this program and you know somebody who can finance this kind of a study, get in touch with us, okay? Call that number. We know that carrying out a prospective cohort study is not easy. It's like a prospective case control study where you have those who are isolated and those who are not isolated and look at the outcome. It's not cheap because of the amount of time that is required to observe the changes in your cases. Please, we would love to do this study and see what we can learn from this, because to tell you the truth, there has been another coronavirus, a few coronaviruses before. This is not the first one. Chances are that there might be another one coming. So we need to arm ourselves with this kind of information. I did ask this question 5 days ago on Facebook. How has COVID-19 affected children? What is your observation or experience in this regard? School-wise, sport-wise, social life, and we have labored already in these few minutes with Mr. Mulenga, my guest today. But here, let me read some of the most interesting comments that you have given us. From Dr. Shailene Desai, it says, post-COVID-19, we have to look critically at the psychological well-being of our children. They are social animals that grow with interaction with their friends. COVID-19 has limited or stopped this interaction altogether. School is limited or completely stopped. An entire year will be wiped out, and they would have missed one entire year of educational, emotional, psychological, and social growth in which we may never get back. It's definitely a very bad situation that our children find themselves into. Do you have any comments?
I think she's got a very important point.
It's actually
there.
a he.
It's a he.
Yeah.
School is an anchor. Kids pick up a lot of things in school. For children who have got language issues, they pick up language there, good language skills. They pick up social skills there. And the social skills, they also pick up emotional skills, how to relate to others, how am I going to relate emotionally with others. So missing school, surely, as we have said before, we need to find a study and find out how has it affected our children. We haven't had school since March, right? And obviously there's an effect on our children. Obviously it's there. So what we know is that while school is very, very important at the same time, schools work hand in hand with what is going on at home. Children are spending about 70% of the time at school. So they pick up a lot of things from there, which they bring home and share with parents. And the 30% of the time at home. So that interaction helps children to grow cognitively, emotionally, socially, and, well, motor skills are picked up from school. We've got little kids who are learning how to hold a pencil. They're not going to school. So we want to see how their handwriting is going to be for not being in school all this long. We want to know. We want to know how their reading skills are going to be. But more importantly, we want to know how are they adapting into society without school, because school is a very powerful adaptive mechanism for children.
And indeed. Christine Kasonde, obviously a mother, says it's a sad situation. E-learning can't happen because of load shedding. They cannot watch TV, even for those lessons conducted by ZNBC and Zamtel, because of load shedding. Their reading span is short. It is a full-time job to try what to do with them 7 days a week. You can feel for this mother.
I feel a lot of parental stress there. I see a lot of parental stress there, which can culminate into all kinds of things. I feel for her. TV, I've heard about the ZNBC and I've seen it, but I'm wondering, and I think this is a question I am going to pose to my good friend, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education. How many children have got access to that? Do we have any statistics? I think the current estimations are about 30%. But with the load shedding, it might even be lower to 15%. But also, just looking at TV, you know, when you are in class, Dr. Chitangala, there's a lot of motivation. There are other people around you, other kids you are competing with. If a teacher asks you a question, who answers first? That's a lot of motivation. And we know, as a psychologist, that most of what we achieve, 60% is motivation. 60% actually is motivation. Now, if you're alone, seated in front of your TV, there's no one competing with. We call it social facilitation. When you're learning with others, there's a sense of competition. Now, if you're alone on TV, that is not likely to motivate kids.
Rita Iona Ho says, COVID-19 has negatively impacted on the lives of school-going children in so many ways. First and foremost, there is no teacher and pupil interaction, which is essential for learning, like you've said. Some pupils are not having classes at all, which means they are not using their brains much in terms of intellectual intelligence development. And those having online classes, depending on level of intelligence, others are able to cope better than others who may fall in average or lower intelligence. Children are demoralized and delinquent behaviors are on the rise. Young girls who fall pregnant and both genders are falling into bad vices, including drinking and smoking and prostitution. The uncertainty of not knowing what the future holds is also a cause of stress for the young. Lastly, but not the least, a part of child development that depends on interaction at schools with peers is missing. Sad story this is. Sounds like something I've already responded to.
Definitely. Yeah. But one thing, just one quick point there is that children's brains are actually working. And that's a point I think I'd like to pick there, where she said children's brains are not working. Children's brains are working, and that's why they are misbehaving. When children's brains are not stimulated, they find a way of stimulating themselves. Yeah. So when you see your son breaking glasses all over, wanting to climb your wall fence, it means their brain is working. They just need the structure which the school provides.
To direct the brain to do the right things, right? Wonderful. Musonda Pyanga Mushoke says, the effect is so vivid. How sure? That's this person is a teacher, by the way. How sure? Come you see your nieces if you mistake, you bath them at 16 hours, be assured, I think he's telling me, be assured to bath them at 19 hours too. The one has said she no longer wants school. One of them said she no longer wants school. Write homework, don't even want to go there. So he's now going through what is happening. Now he has to bath the children a few more times than usual because there's more playing. You bath them at 16 hours, they'll go back to the same sand that you moved them from. Voila Muo says, I feel the school children have been disadvantaged in some areas like social. It's fine that bars are not allowed to operate full-time, but takeaway base is okay. Yeah, I can't get the reasoning, but we understand that the children are disadvantaged. So those are your views on Facebook. We also want to hear what you think. Want to know what you think right now? You can call that number on the screen or go on Facebook. You're going to find a live broadcast on my page, which is Fred Chitangala's Zone, and you will find this broadcast. You can make that comment. Okay. And I think Mr. Nsaruga has also made some comments there. I believe these are similar to what he mentioned when he called. Let's get to our questions, Mr. MULENGA. Many children and young people are almost contending with family separations, caring for the sick relatives, even the death of their loved ones. What do you think is happening in the mind of a child when they hear their loved one has got coronavirus, their loved one has died of COVID-19, when they hear Papa will forever be alone because Mama has died of coronavirus?
I think that's where really it's a very sad situation. And as families and as communities and as a nation, it's something we have to take seriously. Children suffer the same pain, the same deep, intense emotions about someone being sick,
Absolutely.
about someone dying. They have got the same emotions as adults. There's this misconception all over that if someone dies, they are just children, they don't understand, they will understand later. Children go through those same emotive situations as adults. Now, we need to pay particular attention when someone is sick, because coronavirus now is all over. It's in our community. There is community spread, as our Minister of Health keeps saying.
Yeah.
There is community spread. So children are likely to know someone who has had coronavirus, or they are likely to hear about someone who has had it. So therefore, they are affected in one way or the other. But in the case of death, in the case of illness, you can know that this child is affected. One, those children tend to isolate themselves more. They tend to cry more. They tend not to want to mix with other people. They tend to talk about wanting to be with the lost one, the one who has gone. They want to show behaviors like the one who has died. I want to be like uncle who died. They also, some of them totally lose appetite. They don't want to eat. You see them losing concentration. You give them a piece of work to wash some plates, some household chores. They start breaking plates and you start complaining. We should never underestimate the feelings of children when someone is sick with corona or someone has died with corona. We should never, ever underestimate. And as families, I'm appealing to all families out there, please, if there's someone who has died or is sick or severely ill with corona, please talk to your children, because they are undergoing the same emotions as you as a parent, as you as a guardian, as you as a caretaker. Now, the way children, their mental status is made is that they may not have what we call good coping mechanisms as an adult. You know, these coping mechanisms we adults have, we develop them over time. For example, if I've got a very stressful situation, I might start going to the gym. I may start playing my Dallas football. That's my coping mechanism. But children don't have those coping mechanisms. And it's up to us as parents to find, what does my children love to do? How can I take their mind off this bereavement? So bereavement management is very, very important in this case.
Absolutely. I've been told we are running out of time, so I'm going to skip 1, 2, 3, 4 questions for the future and go straight into what I think could as well be the most important question of the discussion today. Mr. Mulenga, what parenting tips can you give to parents during this pandemic?
Okay, that's a very, very important question, and I think I'm going to give it to my students in their assignment and give them a good number of them C's and D's. But that's a very critical question. One thing, what should parents do? What parenting tips? I think number one, we need to talk to our children. Culturally, we don't talk to our children. We assume a lot of things, but children know a lot. Let's talk to our children. Let's put them aside. Let's talk about coronavirus. Let's talk about protection. Let's talk about masking. Let's talk about people who have died. Let's be candid about it. It's a way of protecting our children. Secondly, let's be positive in the way we talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's not leave it to chance. Let's give direction. So let's be positive. Then secondly, I would urge all the parents to be alert, because during these times, these are unprecedented times. Our generations, we have never passed through this. Children are much more likely to misbehave. So let's be alert for misbehavior. Misbehavior can come in any form. You send a child, go and buy for me tomato at the next Cantemba. The child says no and refuses.
Yes, and a direct no. There's nothing like that wiring no, just no.
Total disobedience. Let's be alert for that. Let's not just brush it aside. It could be because these children need us. Then secondly, we should also be alert for other behaviors, such as oversleeping. That's what we need to do.
Do you know what I've observed in my home? Sleeping late. And I'm like, they never used to do this. I have to wake up and ask them to sleep. Even if you have switched off the TV, they'll still be chatting
They
in their
go back to
bedrooms.
switch it on.
No, to chat in their bedrooms.
That's another way of what we need to be alert for as parents. Then secondly, I think coronavirus is sapping a lot of confidence in our children. You know, you haven't been to school. By the time they go back to school, they would have forgotten their multiplication tables. They have forgotten their spelling. So find time, give them structure. Let there be structure in their home. And I know many times we rush to TV. Oh, there's TV, watch Cartoon Network. That's not the way. Let's find time. Let's share time together. Let's have ice cream together. Let's find safe spaces. Go to a place where there's a safe space. You have time with your children. Dedicate a Sunday to read together. Buy books with children and say, okay, my son, you are reading this book. I am reading book. Let us be models to our kids.
I can just say amen to that. So now, remember I mentioned that we have not managed to finish all the questions. Under normal circumstances, 9 questions we could have just walked over through. But this was a very important topic. We had to ask follow-up questions. We had a phone call. We also had to see what you are saying on social media. Now, I'll leave these things to think about, and they touch a bit on what my guest has talked about already, and they're coming from the questions I could have asked if we had time. So what is happening with COVID-19 containment measures? It's likely that they will lead to an increased level of GBV, especially concerning the girl child pregnancies, and even child marriages, because as far as some parents are concerned, children are doing nothing. Girl children are doing nothing.
A quick point on that one, Doctor. Just the district where I come from, Pemba.
Yes.
I grew up in Pemba and I speak very fluent Tonga.
Oh, wow.
They call me MULENGA. You know, just recently I saw reports that a good number of girls in Pemba got pregnant. During just this time of the pandemic, a huge number, that was a report that came out over the media.
That's what we're talking about. Indeed. And think about increased responsibility for household chores and for these kids, and whether this is going to lead to increased levels of child labor, we don't know. Also, remember that these children that we are keeping home at one point may miss vaccinations. At one point, their health-seeking behavior or even their health practices will deteriorate because there's somewhere else they're going. They'll be overeating and they'll stop exercising. And we know that coronavirus has shifted some attention from those powers that be. And programs like vaccinations, perhaps, or other programs may suffer. Who is going to suffer? Our children. I still want to know your views on all these issues. Please, this video will stay live on my page or the page of Prism Africa TV. You can still post your questions, your comments. We can continue discussing way beyond the broadcast we have today. This is the end of our discussion today. Next week, I'll be honored to talk to somebody who survived coronavirus, and he is an expert in one area of health. So I would like to talk to him concerning how he saw how was the care, what was it? Remember last week I was talking to 2 survivors of COVID-19, but I want to continue this discussion next week so that we can learn more about what is happening and in the minds of people that have coronavirus during isolation, and also especially that is an expert in healthcare. What is it that may have gone wrong during his care in isolation? You well? Thank you so much for calling. For those that followed us on social media, we appreciate your viewership. We are off now, but please remember, your health is your choice. Mask up, wash your hands frequently, and keep that social distance. Bye-bye.
Prism Africa, television for the whole family.